Good afternoon. My name is LR Kennon, and for this video, our article and discussion is Pedlar and Divinity, George Whitfield and the Great Awakening from 1737 to 1745 by Frank Lambert. And this article was published in the Journal of American History. Lambert argues that Whitfield's success during the Great Awakening does not just lie with oratory, but with the marketing of his religious discourse that Lambert calls modern revivalism. Whitfield had the ability to generate publicity and a thirst for his revivals on both sides of the Atlantic. Whitfield's genius was oratory, and as Lambert acclaims, entrepreneurial in launching his spiritual goals. Whitfield's appropriation of new commercial techniques to publicize his revivals has only been alluded to, according to Lambert. What was new about Whitfield was the skill as an entrepreneur that made him a full-fledged forerunner to evangelists like Charles Finney and Billy Graham down the road. His revivals were a product to be marketed as a religious event inseparable from the consumer revolution of the 18th century. Whitfield came prepared by applying the means from the world of commerce to publicize his meetings. He had cargo in the ship Elizabeth that contained boxes of evangelical books, pamphlets, cartons of his own printed sermons, journals, letters, and prayers. He had self-promoting reports that from his traveling companion, William Seward, and these were transmitted from Benjamin Franklin's intercolonial newspaper network. Whitfield believed that his mission was so great that his publicity should exceed that of the world. So Seward had these puff pieces printed in newspapers. They looked like a news article from a third party, but really they were an ad, and they were on the front page of the newspaper and formed journals for serialized journals that the poor would read. And these puffed articles would rate the sermons that Whitfield gave, calling them excellent charity sermons before a crowded congregation whose contributions were remarkable. Before his American trips, Whitfield promoted his upcoming trips to American and London newspapers, and he held a major fundraiser. His printed works benefited the cause financially. Peter Choi corroborates Lambert's notion, showing that Whitfield's commercial and entrepreneurial instincts by focusing on his efforts to strengthen his entrepreneurial ministry. Choi also points out how Whitfield used fundraising for donations to print publications, which then he sold and used those profits to buy land and start a support an orphanage called Besadia in the then colony of Georgia. Choi makes the observation concerning Whitfield's entrepreneurial ministry and asks, was Whitfield more politically motivated using evangelism, or did the British system simply provide opportunities and agency for its successful entrepreneurship? Writer Jessica Parr complicates this picture from the perspective of race. Whitfield expressed his opinion that although Georgia prohibited slavery at that time, no notice was taken of Negroes at all. He then suggested that if South Carolina planter would give him a Negro, he would venture to keep him. Parr's work suggests that Lambert's market lens can flatten or sanitize the human cost of Whitfield's entrepreneurship. Whitfield's push to introduce slavery in Georgia was a cost-cutting measure for the orphanage, but he seems more like a commercial enterprise, she says. Choi states that after initially sidestepping the slavery debate, by the year 1751, Whitfield argued for the institution of slavery using some biblical examples and actively supported it in Georgia, as well as purchasing numerous slaves for his orphanage. Choi says that Whitfield's justification for owning slaves was economic, and he gave a defense that he could provide good treatment and an education for them. So was Whitfield an originator or an imitator? Was the period between 1735 and 1750 an American Great Awakening? Susan O'Brien posits as a time of religious revival for America, England, and Scotland, in which she calls a transatlantic evangelical network. She says it was a time of revival publicly, a collective pre-existing system of correspondence and exchange among many evangelicals, not a system invented by one entrepreneurial individual. She posits that in its broadest sense, revivalism in the mid-18th century not only appeared in several places, but it involved a range of theologies and religious beliefs. These groups also shared connections and influences. In other words, Whitfield was not a sole entrepreneur, but one imitating the religious industry. O'Brien suggests there was evidence that this kind of work was going on both sides of the Atlantic, and these groups were well aware of each other's activities. So is Lambert overstating Whitefield's entrepreneurship? Is he an originator? Yes. Whitfield made his message more accessible with advertising and printed matter. He did not invent the revival. O'Brien says there's nothing new about these associations of ministers or religious communication systems or transatlantic ones, but our understanding of 18th century revivalism. These cross fertilizations were common. Thank you.